Hello everyone. We have discussed in the previous session what is an option and we have discussed what is a call option. In this session, we'll discuss what is an put option and where it is used. And we'll also discuss by an example how to create the different payoffs. As discussed in the previous session, option is a contract that gives the holder, if you're an option buyer, you have a choice that you can either buy a particular asset or you can sell a particular asset at an agreed price. And therefore, we have discussed that there can be two types of option. If a buyer buys an option in which he has a right to buy an asset, you have a choice of buying an asset that is called as a call option, which we discussed in a previous session. And if a buyer has a choice of selling an asset, then that choice which a person is buying is called a put option. Now, why will a person would like to buy a put option? Because the buyer of a put option, so buyer of a put option is of the opinion that in future the prices will fall down. So let's assume that I am of the opinion that current price of a particular share, let's mean Reliance Industries Limited, current price of RIL is rupees 2000. And I am of the opinion, a person, let's say Mr. A, feels that Reliance share will be falling in the next month. So he is having a bearish opinion or a bearish take on a particular asset, and therefore he want to ensure that he still gains on the fall of the Reliance stock. So what he can do, he can buy a put option. So Mr. A can buy a put option. Let's assume he buys Reliance Industries Limited put option at rupees, let's assume 2100, expiring, as I mentioned in the previous session, that every option contract will have an exercise price. So this becomes a 2100 rupees exercise price and you will have an expiry date. So let's assume expiry date is 30th May. At present, we are sitting on 17th April and the contract expiry date is 30th May. So Mr. A is buying an option to sell the Reliance share at rupees 2100 on 30th May. Now, what can happen in this? So Mr. A has purchased Reliance stock. As I mentioned, Mr. A has purchased a Reliance put option of Reliance stock at a strike price, let's assume of rupees 2100. Current date is on, we are sitting on 17th April and this contract is for 30th May. So this contract which Mr. A is doing, Mr. A is buying. So Mr. A is buying the put option. He's buying the put option. Somewhere obvious, if somebody is buying it, somebody is selling it also. So let's assume Mr. B is there. He is selling this put option to Mr. A. This is an example. Generally, this transaction happens to exchange, and he is selling the put option to Mr. A. Now, what Mr. A, since he is buying a right, he has to pay a premium. So Mr. A, for buying this choice that he has a right to sell the Reliance stock at 2100 rupees, he will pay a certain premium. So let's assume this premium he's making is rupees 120. So he's paying a premium of rupees 120 to Mr. B, and Mr. B is giving him, he's writer of this put option. So both A and B are having an opposite position. So Mr. A feels that the Reliance stock will go down in future. Mr. B as a writer feeling no, Mr. Reliance stock will never go down in the future. It will go up in the future coming. So both A and B, the buyer and seller, both always has an opposite position in the market. So now let's see what will happen. So if on 30th May, let's assume that if the Reliance stock goes up to rupees 2500. So if the Reliance stock goes rupees 2500, Mr. A has a choice to sell this at rupees 2100. What is your opinion? Will he be exercising this choice? No, he will not be exercising the choice, because the Reliance price in the stock exchange has gone to rupees 2500, and therefore this contract which he has taken will give him no payoff. It will lead him zero payoff. So there will be no benefit by this contract which Mr. A has purchased. So this is a zero payoff. So, and this is will definitely, in this case, no option will be exercised, and this is also called as out of money contract. This is out of money contract if the price is 2500. Let's take the second example. In case the Reliance share fell down to rupees 1500. So Reliance share in the market is rupees 1500, whereas he has an option to sell the Reliance share as rupees 2100. What should Mr. A do? Obvious, he will exercise the put option, because this is giving you higher price. So the exercise price in this case, the exercise price is more than the current spot price, and that's the gain which Mr. A will have. So he will exercise the put option, and he will have a payoff, a positive payoff of plus 600 rupees. So he will have a positive payoff of plus 600 rupees. So 2100 minus 1500 rupees, that is exercise price minus the current spot price, he will have a 600 rupees a positive payoff. Quite obvious, since he has paid the premium also of rupees 120, his net profit will be minus 120 rupees. His net profit will be 480 rupees. Right? So this is how the situation. So if a person has purchased a put option, he is of the opinion that that particular asset will go down. So if that asset goes down, that person will make money. And if that asset doesn't go down, quite obvious, that person, a buyer of that put option, will lose. That payoff will have a zero payoff, and he will lose what is called as a premium. Whereas Mr. B, if the Reliance stocks goes down, Mr. A will not exercise the call option, and Mr. B will be getting a benefit in the form of a premium. But if the Reliance stock starts going, if the Reliance stock, so in the first case, as I mentioned, the Reliance stocks goes up, right? So in that case, Mr. A will not exercise the put option, and therefore Mr. B will end up getting the premium. But if the Reliance stock starts going down, as in this case, then Mr. B, as I mentioned, he was a seller of a put option. He cannot go back. He has to honor the commitment. Choice is always with the buyer. The seller doesn't have a choice. So Mr. B will be losing it, because in the market the price, the exercise price is 2100 rupees, and he has promised to sell at 2100 rupees, but in the market the price is 1500 rupees. So his payoff will be minus 600, and his profit and loss will be, because he's already got the premium also, so his net loss will be minus 480. So if the Reliance stock starts falling down, a buyer of a put option will gain, but the writer will lose. So to understand this in much more detail, and also to look at how the payoffs will look like, let's look at the Excel calculations. So here you can look at the Excel calculations. Here the exercise price is taken as 2100 rupees. The premium is taken as rupees 120. So this part indicates the payouts, the payoff and profit and loss for the buyer of a call option. So this is a buyer of a call option. So let's see what is happening. Buyer of a put option, sorry, it's a buyer of a put option. So the buyer, the person who has bought the put option, he was of the opinion. Why will he buy the put option? Because he was of the opinion that the stock will be bearish, that the asset in the future will fall down. And in case the asset starts falling down, as you can see here is 1500, then he has a positive payoff of 600. So he is getting a positive payoff of 600 rupees. But he has paid the premium of rupees 120, so his net gain is 480. Whereas if stock is 1600, his payoff is 1500. So the more the stock falls down, the more the payoff will happen. So at 2000 rupees, he has a right to sell at 2100 rupees, where the stock is 2000. He will still exercise the put option. He will have a positive payoff, but since he had paid the premium of rupees 120, his net gain will be minus 20. So the more the stock is falling below, clear, you can see the more the stock is falling below, the lower the stock is falling, the more the gain will be. So just for understanding purpose, if this is stock price theoretically, just for purpose, it becomes zero. If this becomes zero, the maximum gain the buyer of a put option can have is the exercise price. That's the maximum gain you can have, maximum payoff, and the maximum gain will be payoff minus the premium. So this is the maximum gain you can have. So that is the maximum gain which can happen. That's as I mentioned, in practical scenario, this will not happen, that the stock will become zero. But yes, if the stock starts falling below, then the buyer of a put option gains. If the stock starts going up, so if the buyer was thinking that the stock price will fall down, but instead of falling, the stock prices were going up. So this is a green sign indicate that is growing up. Then in that case, what are we observing? We are observing that we can see here, we are observing that different prices we can keep, and we are observing that you will not exercise the put option because you have a right to sell at 2100 rupees, whereas in the market the price has gone 2300 rupees. The first buyer of a put option will not exercise his right, and therefore the payoff will be zero, but overall he will lose the premium. And this is how you can see here, this is the graph which has been shown here is. So as we have discussed that before also, the payoff of a buyer can never be zero. The profit and loss, the maximum loss which the buyer of a put option will have, the maximum loss is the premium which he has paid, right? So when this amount will become zero, so if I have to see it here, if I look at if let's assume if the price becomes so you have 1880, so let's look at this here. So 1880, it's a gain of 100. So let's say if the price is become 1980, yeah, so if the price is 1980, so if the price is 1980, his payoff is plus 120, but since he has paid the premium of 120, this is the break-even point for the buyer of a call option. So for a buyer of a again I'm sorry, buyer of a put option, so the buyer of a put option will make money in this case as long as the stock is below 1980. As the stock will start falling below 1980, his profits will start becoming positive. So this is the payoff. You can see here is this is the payoff. The there's both givings given here. So you can see here is this is the two lines, which is one is the payoff line, and the other is the profit line. So you can see both profit and losses line is given. So it's mentioned both in the indicators given both here. This, so that is much better for understanding purpose. So blue line basically is a payoff line, and the orange line indicates what is called as a profit and loss line. So you can see the profit, the loss maximum is the premium, that's the 120 here. The loss is coming, profit and loss coming zero, and this is happening at the level when the, you can see when it is 1980 is the price. So 1980 price, there's a break-even point. Let's look at the situation who a person who is selling the put. So the person who is selling the put, quite obvious as I mentioned, will have a totally reverse chart. He will be gaining. He will be gaining if the stock is going up, because if the stock is going up, this person will not exercise his put option. Therefore, he will gain the premium. So this is the gain which is happening to him. So this is the gain which is happening to him, and but he will end up making losses also. So his payoff, as I mentioned, payoff of a seller can never be positive. Payoff will be zero. Payoff will be zero only at that point when the buyer is not exercising his put option, but the payoff will start becoming negative as the stock will start falling down, right? And this yellow line indicates the loss which the seller will get in case the stock starts falling down. So the seller, the writer of a put is of the opinion that the stock will not fall. The buyer of a put is of the opinion that the stock will fall. So buyer of a put will gain when the asset prices starts falling down, and the seller of the put will gain when the asset prices goes up, and the gain is limited to the premium which he has got. So I hope you are able to understand what is a put option. So put option gives a buyer a choice to sell at an exercise price. For that he pays a premium, right? So why will you go for a put option? I will go for a put option when I have a bearish outlook for that particular asset for which we are buying a put. So thank you very much, and we'll discuss further more strategies in the coming sessions.